Okay. Today we have a very special guest on VUFOA-TV, and this person is Geraldine Sutton Stith. She is the daughter of Elmer Lucky Sutton, whose family had a terrifying encounter on August 21st, 1955, in Kelly, Kentucky, when some strange creatures approached the farmhouse and terrorized the occupants within the house. The case is commonly known as the Hopkinsville Goblins, or the Kelly Goblins Case, and is also affectionately referred to as the Little Green Men Case. And it is one of the most credible close encounter cases that we have seen occur in the world. So, Geraldine, I'd love to welcome you to VUFOA-TV.
Thank you. I'm happy to be on your little thing here.
Yeah.
It's really good to get to talk to somebody overseas.
That's great. It really is. I really thank you for your time tonight. So I would really just like, because the case isn't necessarily that well known here, and certainly to all the Gen Y people who are a lot younger, I thought it'd be really good if you could just start in your own words and explain to us, what actually happened on August 21st, 1955 in Kelly, Kentucky.
Oh, goodness. It's a crazy story. Of course, it was August 21st, 1955. Hot August. Really dry. My father at the time worked in a carnival. In fact, he had worked in a carnival ever since he was 14 years old. And they had to be stationed in a nearby town about a couple hours away. So since they were that close, they decided to come home for the weekend. So it was my dad, his wife at the time, Vera, Billy Ray Taylor, who was a friend of my dad's, and June, Billy Ray's wife. So they all came in for the weekend. Was having a good time. Everything was great. Sunday evening, of course, that was the last night they were going to be there because they were going to have to go back Monday. Well, they were all in the house, doing their little thing, playing cards or something, and they had no plumbing. This is 1955. They did have electricity, but they did not have plumbing. So Billy Ray went out to the water to get some water. Went out to the well to get some cold water because it was cooling well. While he was out there, he heard something, looked up, and going across the sky was an open paper object that was silver. And how he described it had all the colors of the rainbow trailing behind it. Didn't know what it was. Scared him. Ran in the house. Told everybody. Well, the first thing my daddy thought was, he went out there. Okay, these are young guys in their early 20s. Billy Ray's wife, she was only 19 at the time. So the first thing my dad thought was, he went out there, took up this little skinny, kind of scared girl. So he just told him, you need to calm it down and stop. You don't need to be scaring everybody. And he kept on. So my dad finally said, all right, let's go out to the well. You show me where it was you saw this thing. They went out there, he pointed towards the sky, told him what he saw, where it was. And my dad's like, trying to reason it out. And he's like, maybe a shooting star. And no, it wasn't. Well, maybe a meteor shower, because they had been having meteor showers at August. And Billy Ray said, my dad's nickname is Lucky. And he said, Lucky, I know what both those look like, and it was neither one of those. Well, there's nothing to do now, so let's just go back to the house. As they were walking back to the house, they saw something coming out from the back of the woods behind the house. It was like 3.5 foot tall, silver and gray in color, huge ears, big eyes, long arms with talons to the ground, and floating on the ground. Legs weren't moving. And so they run the house and tell everybody, there is something out here. Well, my grandmother's first thought was, and I forgot to tell this, there was 11 people in the house that night. Besides the two couples, it was my grandmother, who was widowed, 3 young children, my 2 uncles and aunts. They were only 12, 10, and 7 at the time. And then there was J.C., my uncle, with his wife, Eileen, and O.T. Baker, who was Eileen's brother. There was 11 people. And so anyway, they ran the house and, telling everybody, there's something out here. And of course, my grandmother thought, okay, now Billy Ray's got her son out there trying to, you know, get it on her full steam. So she's like, you need to stop because I've got to get these kids in bed. You're sharing them with all your stories. And my dad is telling her, you know, Mom, there is something out here. And she knew it was really getting serious. And one grabbed a rifle, one grabbed a shotgun, one went to the front door, one went to the back door. So she knew right then and there something serious was about to happen. You don't do that. And so she thought, well, I'll just go talk to Billy Ray and pick his brain. Maybe, you know, he can tell me a little better. So Billy Ray was his back door. So she went out there with him and like, Billy Ray, what did you see? And he's like, Miss Lee, I don't know what it was, but it looked like something the devil had brought forth. And she's thinking, oh my gosh, because she's a real religious woman. In fact, you know, she's in church that night.
Yeah.
And so they're sitting there and they're looking out into the darkness, and all of a sudden, around the corner of the house, here comes one, as big as you please. And so Billy Ray shoots at it. Of course, that causes everybody. My grandmother screams and falls forward. They all come running, and you know they're telling. You know, my grandmother's like, "We've seen it. There is something out here." And about that time, there comes a shot from the front of the house. Well, JC is shooting one out of the window. So here we got a battle going on. Billy Ray runs out the front, and just as he runs out on the little stoop out front, this clawed hand reaches down, grabs his hair, Eileen grabs him and yanks him in, and so they're shooting. My dad runs out there. There's one up in the big maple tree there in the front yard, so he shoots off the maple tree. They shoot one off the little stoop that's hanging down on the house. They shoot one off the back fence. They just keep shooting these little suckers. They're coming from every direction. And the funny thing about it is when they shoot one, I knew they were hitting it because you hear it. And it would stop and roll away and then come back. And so it was like, you know, what do we do? And so this went on for a pretty bit. They went in the house, and of course the kids are hysterical, the women are hysterical, everybody's crying, nobody knows what to do. My dad is trying to figure out, you know, what can we do? And so it gets quiet, and they hear one going across the top of the roof. It's a tin roof. And they hear it scratching across the top of the roof. And so, you know, that's got to be eerie right there in itself. And finally, it does get quiet. And so at that moment, my dad is like, ticket trucks were going to Hopkinsville. Hopkinsville is like 7-8 miles up the road.
Yeah.
He's thinking, he can get up there, get to the police station, maybe they can get some help. So they take off, you know, everybody's hysterical. They're in these trucks, you know, just looking around, you know, afraid that something's going to get them. And they get to Hopkinsville running. There's one little police officer on duty. And he's bombarded with all these people, and they're all trying to tell him, you know, what they saw, what happened, what they were doing. And he's just like trying to get all this in his head, and he's like, okay, tell me what's happened. And so he gets it out of him. He's like, you had a battle with what, you know? And he's like, okay, hold on. So he calls the Sheriff Russell Greenwald. And Sheriff Greenwald tells him, says, okay, call Fort Campbell. Fort Campbell is the Army base down the road. Call Fort Campbell. Call papers. Call Nashville, another place up there. You know, call everybody who just hold up and get them out there to get respond. So next thing you know, there's a little caravan of cars and trucks going out to the little county farm out in the middle of nowhere land. And they get out there. Of course, there's evidence of something happening because there's shotgun and rifle shells all over the place. There's holes in the screens, you know, the woodwork on the windows and doors has been checked. And so, sure, they battled with something, but they couldn't find anything. When they were coming up, some of the police officers did see a glowing substance on the back fence where they had shot one. But when they walked up to it and looked at it, they couldn't find anything. Now, you got to realize, nobody did anything right. They didn't rope off anything. They didn't take samples. They didn't do any of this. They came, they looked, they saw, couldn't find anything, and left. So anyway, my family was left there. Everybody was exhausted. My grandmother gets the kids to bed. Everybody tries to lay down and get some rest. She's in one of the bedrooms with my dad sitting in a chair, and he's got the gun across his lap, ready to fight again if he has to. And my grandmother just something wakes her up, and she looks toward the window, and she sees one. Well, she's thinking, well, maybe she's dreaming. So she closes her eyes, opens them again, still there. One more time, she thought. So she closed her eyes one more time and opened them, and the sucker was still sitting there. So she screams out my dad's name. He jumps up. They're back, she said. And so he starts shooting again, and the battle ensues once again. And so they do this until about 5:15 in the morning.
Wow.
When daylight hit, they disappeared. The only thing they could figure was that they did notice that if a light was clicked on or anything, they would back away. So the theory of that is their eyes were really big, and maybe that so much light would hurt their eyes. Theory, we don't know. And that's why they left. But anyway, that was the battle that night. The next battle they had was the human battle, because people were coming from everywhere. They were camping out in the yard because people were wanting to see the aliens. They were wanting them to come back. They were walking through their house, taking souvenirs, taking stuff out of the yard. It was just crazy. And, but, people came to interview them and talk to them. Of course, they didn't want nothing to do with it. They just wanted it to go away. They had an encounter with something they didn't know what it was. They didn't understand it. It frightened them. Everybody was scared. They just wanted it to go away. In fact, 2 weeks after this event happened, my grandmother's old farm.
Wow.
And moved into Hopkinsville, into an apartment building with 2 kids because she didn't handle it anymore. It was just too scary. She was afraid to come back. And that's what it did. It did scare them all. And, the Russell Greenwald really believed it happened for the sheer fact that my grandmother, she was just so sincere in everything, and her being so religious as she was, she had no reason to make up a story, and she wouldn't have known what it was. She had made it up. And, it's incredible. I mean, people love the story because of, I think, the simplicity. You have a old country farming family that had no clue what was happening to them that night. They had an encounter, either the supernatural or extraterrestrial. They had an encounter with something that night.
Absolutely. In fact, you'd almost say that that was something that they could not possibly have dreamed up.
No, because they were a poor family.
Yeah.
And they were small. My grandmother didn't have the money. She was widowed. She did not have the money to go to the movies and see all these fancy little movies that were going on at the theater. They worked on the farm. They worked hard. And the kids didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I had people ask me, well, what about your dad and Billy Ray? What if maybe they had something to do with it? Well, no, I think not. My daddy would not put himself in that position, for one. Because one of the worst things about this whole thing was that hurt him so deep was that people would not believe him, that this happened, that they made fun of him, that the ridicule was terrible. And that hurt him as much as the encounter itself, because he did not like that.
Yeah.
Something happened. He wanted people to believe in. And, it did. It hurt him. And, no, he would not put himself in that position. Anybody that knew my dad would know he would not do that.
Yeah.
And poor June, Billy Ray's wife, it scared her so bad she vowed never to enter the boundaries of Kentucky again.
Really?
And, it was just one of the things.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, you can't even sort of as much as I try to imagine it, what happened, but to actually have been there, I think I would have hightailed it out of Kentucky as well. Like you would never go back.
Exactly, and that was her thing. She was only 19 years old.
Yeah.
She was like one of the children. And that's what it is today. My 2 uncles and aunt, they're still alive, the young ones are. And the two younger ones, they have just like made it go away. They don't want to believe it happened.
Yeah.
Now the older one, if you're lucky, you might get him to talk a little about it.
Yeah.
But the other two will not.
At all?
No.
No. What type of memories do the people who are alive today actually have of those events? Did they witness the creatures, or were they herded into a room and they didn't see anything?
Well, the thing is, when it all happened, of course, my daddy went into protection mode.
Yeah.
And he made the women go to that bedroom, and he told them, he said, y'all get under the bed. Stick the kids under the bed. Stay there until I tell you to come out.
Yeah.
And so actually, the kids did not get to see the creatures. All the older ones did, but the kids didn't because they were stuck under the bed.
Yeah.
They heard the screaming. They heard the cussing, which I'm sure was a lot of. They heard the gunfire.
Yeah.
Of course, they heard the thing going across the room.
Yeah.
But they did not get to see them.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is probably for the best, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if they were very traumatized just from everything else, I can't imagine if they had actually seen them.
Yeah.
How that would have been.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on the farm itself. How big was the farm? Was it a large farm or small farm? How many people actually lived at the house day to day?
I think it was like something like 27 acres. It was a small farm. Uncle J.C. and his wife stayed there with my grandmother after her husband passed.
Yeah.
And helped with what they had. They had a few farm animals, the typical small farm scenario.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was just them and her and 3 small kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So several people. And what was your father's connection with Billy Ray? How did they know each other?
They met in the carnival.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they just met in the carnival and became big buddies.
Yeah, yeah. And did they get together often? Because I read that Billy was from Pennsylvania, and they may not have seen each other regularly.
Well, from what I understand, they both worked in the same carnival, so they were together pretty regularly.
Yeah.
What I understand. Now, after this incident, it was like Billy Ray was never heard of again. And I can't even find him. I tried to do a search, and other people have too, and nobody could find this man.
Wow.
Or June. So, it's like, okay, where did they go? Well, what happened to them? We don't know. My dad don't know. He didn't know.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
That's history in itself there.
Yeah, because it's amazing. How many nights had Billy Ray and June been staying leading up to the encounter? Had they been there for several nights, or was that just like the first night they'd stayed there?
No, they were there the whole weekend. From what I understand, they probably came in like on a Friday evening. They were there like Friday and Saturday, and they left out Monday. They were setting up, of course, but they left out Monday.
Yeah. And how?
And that's the thing too. My grandmother always was stressing over because she wouldn't have all that protection there either. Because once my dad was gone, it was just been her small kids and then JC and his wife. And I think she felt more comfortable if they had all been there. But with everybody gone, it's up to them to just look.
Yeah. How close were the nearest neighbours to the farmhouse?
Well, that's funny too, because there was a neighbor right in back of them down the field there.
Yeah.
And that's funny because the night of the event, he was hearing stuff, and so he thought that before all the gunfire had started, he heard stuff going on, and he thought they were having some kind of trouble with the animals or something got out.
Yeah.
So he was going to help them, so he went in the house to get his suits on and grabbed a lantern, and when he stepped out on the porch, he started hearing the gunfire.
Yeah.
And that's when he decided, no, because he's afraid to get shot. So he went back in the house, and he thought, well, they can handle it themselves. They're big boys. But there was a lot of things that were heard and seen that night that, people did not talk about it until later on because they didn't want any part of it because they seen how bad they were getting harassed over it. So nobody really came forward till way later to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's It's so they were relatively isolated then in that case. A neighbour did hear the commotion, and after the facts, other people did see strange lights also, including one of the policemen, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Stuff I heard that night from various other people. Of course, Kelly at the time was very sparse. You had a farm here, a farm there, a farm here, and everybody was pretty well separated. It's not like it is now.
Yeah.
I've had people come forward and tell me that things that they saw or heard that night.
Yeah. Yeah. Did anyone find a landing site at all?
That's a funny one too. Nobody really talked about it back then. And that's funny that you bring that up because this happened in 55. My parents kept this picture up for years. See, at the time, my mama did live in Kelly, and she had 7 children by her first husband.
Yeah.
So my mom hadn't worked together yet. And how we found out was really by chance because it's about 68 or 69, this couple came to our house and they wanted to talk to my daddy. And I was like 8 years old. And so I went and got him because my mom and dad were in the back of the house. So I went and got him and they wanted to talk to him about the Kelly incident. Well, we didn't know what they were talking about. And so I guess my daddy thought, well, I guess it's something better find out about this. I don't know how they kept it so hush-hush all these years, especially from the older kids that my mom had, because they all remembered this happening. And I guess they just swore to secrecy. I don't know. And they set us down in a circle on the floor, and then my dad started talking about this incredible story. I was sick. And the following weekend after that, he said, well, we're going to go to Kelly. We went to Kelly. And the house was still standing, the well was still there. And we walked way back in the field, and lo and behold, there was a big place with no grass. Perfect circle. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
It was probably about the size of a 30-foot round little pool, I would say.
Yeah. And
like I said, I'll never forget it. I mean, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And he said this is where it was, and we're like, okay, well that just put a little more there in. And so for a little girl 8 years old, I was scared to death. I'd go around the house at night and close all the windows, the shutters, the curtains, whatever I could, because I was afraid something was going to look at me. While we're going to do or when I went to bed, were they going to look at the windows? I was terrified. So, I can't imagine me even not being there. The scary story scared me to death. I can't imagine being there and witnessing it. So, but there was a place.
Yeah. There was definitely a place where something touched down.
Yes.
Do any photos exist of that at all?
There are photos, but they're not good photos. There's one out there, and I don't have that one, but I think one of my cousins did. My grandmother is in there pointing at place, but it's not a good picture at all. You can't see the big round thing. It's just a really close-up picture, and she just points at the screen. Yeah. And it's not a good picture. Yeah. But, a lot of good pictures weren't taken back. Now you would go out there and click, get every picture you could, but back then they didn't. Like I said, they didn't want to get rid of it, forget about it.
So, I understand that when it occurred, that your grandmother, Glennie, suggested that they didn't shoot at the creatures. Is that correct?
That's she thought that if they just leave them be, they go away.
Yeah.
Another thing, too, that was really strange was they were coming up to the house with their hands in the air.
Yeah.
Claws, or whatever you call them. And, you know, in our language, that means that surrender, you know, and that's what she was thinking. Surrender.
Yeah.
And she kept telling my dad, maybe if you just leave them alone, they'll just go away. And that wasn't his mentality. His mentality was, they're coming up to the doors and windows, they're trying to get in. And they're not going to get that chance.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of, I've, you know, read a lot about the case, and they almost seem playful.
Almost seem what?
They seem playful, like, you know, like mischievous and playful rather than outright invading. And I don't like that word in reference to this case, you know, when you study their behaviour at the time. But they seem to have a lot of curiosity and I suppose never really directly tried to hurt the people in the house.
Right, exactly. They didn't have anything on them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've done paranormal shows, and we've had other people on that have been in situations where, you know, they've had abductions and stuff. And one of the things that was brought up in one of the, well, more than one show, is that do you think the small children had something to do with it? Because these were small, you know, they weren't big at all.
No.
And so the theory is maybe they were just wanting to get to the children. You know, we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to say what their motivation was, you know. But I think harm is probably wasn't one of their motivations, because most likely they certainly could have hurt the humans if that had been their intention, I would have thought. And obviously the shotguns were doing nothing to them. So and that's quite a scary aspect of the case, is the fact that a 12-gauge shotgun will normally damage most living creatures without any worries in the world. But these creatures are being shot. It sounded like hitting a metal bucket, and they weren't hurt by the experience. A little bit of phosphorus colour flies off them, or a glow where they've been hit, and then they've gone.
Exactly.
So that to me is a very scary aspect of it. I tend to think that yes, they were curious. That's what I think. I think that they were curious about the humans, and they're looking in the windows and they're scratching on the roof, and so yeah, I sort of do think that invasion is necessarily not the right term. Also, they only ever saw one or two of them at a time, didn't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stories you can read. Sometimes they say there was 11 or 12 of them. My daddy said it was never that many. He's pretty sure that it was maybe 3 or 4. It was the same ones that kept coming back. It wasn't that many at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, they weren't getting hurt, so they were jumping up and coming back at them.
Yeah. So it's amazing. And you look at the breakdown of the events. You know, the dog was really the one who rang the alarm bell that creatures had actually arrived, because the dog was barking hysterically.
Right.
So there you've got.
Everybody else did.
Yeah.
But animals do.
They do.
Yep.
And so the dog comes running past the men with his tail between his legs, and they see this creature approaching with its arms in the air. They shoot the creature. They see another one on the awning. They shoot that. Then the men go inside. There's eyes in the window. They take a shot at the eyes peering through the window. They go outside to confirm their kill, and then Billy Ray's hair gets grabbed. They see the one up in the maple tree. That was a fairly intense period of time, and then they hunkered back into the house after that for 3 hours to 11 p.m. And you know, at that point they make that break to go to the police station, and obviously the creatures must have backed off or were taking a break at that point in time. And the other amazing thing that I find too is that when these people actually arrived at the police station, the police believed them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know,
well, Russell Greenwald, he had couple of years before that.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why he believed so much that it could have happened, that they were really having an alien encounter because of what he had witnessed. So he was in no doubt at any time that this was real.
Yeah. And as you said before, it appears like, there was something incredibly wrong. You've got two trucks come barreling up to the police station just before, prior to midnight, and all these scared people jump out. It's not something that the police at that time, particularly in 1955, would have seen very often in a remote area where the people aren't scared of local wildlife. Everybody's got a shotgun.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think too, these are country boys. Like I've always said, they could shoot a rabbit running or squirrel up a tree. It wasn't nothing for them to hit these.
Yeah, exactly right. And I sort of, you look at what the police went out there and they found scared folks. They found shotgun casings. They found evidence that was consistent in the shooting with the story. So the story matched the evidence out there. No evidence of a hoax, and obviously one would say, well, they'd been drinking that night. But from what I understand, that there was no alcohol allowed at the farm.
Well, there's no. Well, they had enough respect for their mother not to have it in the house, for one.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything found. I mean, they just watched it. They couldn't say it was alcohol. It kills me sometimes because you read and see stuff, and that's the first reaction of anybody that doesn't live in Kentucky.
Yeah.
They were a bunch of moonshine hillbillies. Yeah. That's the first reaction.
Yeah.
It's like all of us that live in Kentucky drink moonshine and are hillbillies. Well, that's not true at all.
That's exactly right. And, but one thing I do find very interesting is that when the police went out there and they stayed out there for, a bit of time having an investigation, and then the police went, the creatures came back. So that's very interesting that the police didn't see anything. There was no evidence except for the glow on the ground that they'd been there and the human reaction to the experience. Then the police go, and around 3:30, the aliens come back, and the antics, and I call it the antics because the running and the scratching and all that continued on until nearly dawn. So and so I think by that stage the family must have just been hunkered down at that point.
They were just. I think they were already physically annoyed with the rain.
Yeah. And
then for it to start all over again, by morning they were just, what do we do? Of course, my daddy, he's like, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to forget this. We're going to let it go. We're going to forget it. We're going to go on with our lives. Act like this didn't happen. Yeah. Well, that wasn't going to happen. The press wasn't going to let it go because they thought they really had something. They put Kelly on that and Hopkinsville.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to go that quick, and it didn't.
No, it stayed
and the
around.
People around weren't going to let it go either, because they were camping out in the yard and wanting more to come back. They were wanting to see them. Everybody was wanting to see the little green man, So nobody was going to let this go.
After the aliens or the creatures, whatever they were, after they left it around the dawn period and the family was left alone, did they go back to the police again after that point in time?
Did they go back after?
Yeah, did they go back to the police again after the aliens came back the second time? And
no, they weren't going to let it go. They didn't do nothing the first time.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything to help. So doing it a second time wasn't going to be good. That was their thought on it. Now they did. The police were having to come out there because there were so many people coming out there that it was just crazy. At one point, my grandmother told my dad that, what are we going to do? People are walking in, they didn't have locks on the doors.
Yeah.
People were walking in and taking stuff out of the house for souvenirs, and she's like, Elmer, they're going to take everything we've got. What we're going to do? You know what he did? He went and grabbed the gun and said, I'll take care of it. And my grandmother grabbed him and said, no, you can't do that. You can't go out there and start shooting. And he's like, watch me. And it just so happened police officers were there at the time, so he just walked out. And when the police officers didn't see anything about this, they're taking everything we've got. And he took care of it. He made everybody leave. Well, for a little bit, and then they started coming back.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just like I said, they had the alien invasion, and then they had the people invasion.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely.
It was. And, you know, it finally started settling down, and then, you know, things got a little back to normal. But then, you know, my grandmother, like I said, she was self-care. As long as she got rid of the place. Yeah,
yeah. And so it didn't take them long to decide that they wanted to move, did they? As a result of the human invasion.
Mm-hmm. She was out there.
So, yeah, it's just time to.
Another family member bought the farm, and one of them is still alive today, and he tells me that he was scared to death how long he lived in that house. He was terrified. They were afraid them things were going to come back.
Now, at the time, a local radio engineer drew pictures for the family, didn't he?
Yeah.
And that's one of. Yeah, Bud Ledwith, and it's strikingly how similar the pictures were. With I suppose the main point of difference was that Billy Ray was the only one who reported that he said that they had antenna on the creatures.
I don't remember that.
Ah, yeah, because with those three pictures, there's two of them look very similar, and then there's a third picture which gives them a slight nose and a couple of little antennas on top. And I was just.
Well, I know he has abs too. He's got abs in here. He made it more muscular.
Yeah. He sort of buffed them up a bit. So.
Yeah, he did buff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the things too that made it so believable, because when Bud did this, what he did was he took them all in the room by themselves.
Yeah.
And got them to describe what they saw. And of course, every one of them was just alike.
Yeah.
You know, that was another thing that made people believe it so much. And, you know, my grandmother, of course, was a big thing, too, because of who she was. And you know, people believed her. She was a religious woman. She had no reason to lie about it. She saw something that night, told what she saw, and that was it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. So. You know, there's, you know, the actual, the facts of the case do stand up, I think, you know, short of, you know, having someone grabbing one of the little creatures and having them locked up in the shed. Basically, you know, you've got, you know, non-attention seeking folks who are scared with nothing to gain as a result of the story. You know, the scene was very consistent. Consistency in the way the creatures were described as well by all the principal witnesses. No alcohol, and the story never changed.
No.
So over all that period of time, there's you know, there certainly is enough there to suggest that, you know, that something absolutely did happen on that night that was beyond everybody's wildest experiences. So I'd just like to sort of have a bit of a chat now, Geraldine, about your experience with the whole encounter. You've told us that you heard about it when you were about 8 years old. So you know, how was it for you across your life? As you know, like you were scared as a child, and at what point did you sort of decide to maybe embrace it a bit more and investigate it yourself?
Well, you know, it's kind of crazy, because that's something you just don't talk about. You don't bring that out, but you always seem doing that. Of course, the story was well known, but it's just something we didn't talk about. We kept it quiet. I never talked about it in school, never told any of my friends. It was just something that you did not bring up.
Yeah.
Of course, I stayed scared all this time. You know, even in my teenage years, you know, when you start dating and you're out at night, you know, I would watch the sky.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I never let on. You know, I just did it.
Yeah.
And, you know, my husband, well, I'm on my third one, but, you know, So I would let them know, about the story. And my first one loved it. My second one hated it. Didn't believe it at all. But he passed away, so.
Yeah.
But my husband I have now loves it. He just thought it was fantastic. And what really got the whole thing rolling was in 2005, it was the 50-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Hopkinsville had this big to-do. It was an all-weekend fair. And, of course, they had me there. And I was on the panel discussion, and we just did all kinds of stuff. And it was amazing. People were coming from all over the world to see this. And I'm like, oh, my God. People love this story.
Yeah.
And so after that was over, I got myself down. I started doing some research, looking at the stories, was seeing how inconsistent a lot of the stories were because, like there was 11 or 12 of them. Billy Ray got abducted. They had my dad's name wrong in a lot of them. And, it was like, oh, my gosh, this is so wrong. I know the story. So that's when I decided to write the book and get the real thing out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, 2005 was when I finally took it in and started doing something with it. Of course, since then, I have learned a lot more. And I'm actually fixing to start another book, recapping it, redoing it, because I've had a lot of people come forward and tell me things. People that heard something that seen things, that had family members that see it. I had people come forward from the military and tell me things that people don't know about,
Wow.
So I'm going to rewrite it and add everything I've learned, and it's going to be bigger and better.
Fantastic, fantastic. And now the book's called Alien Legacy. And it was obviously probably the definitive statement on the case. And from what I understand, it is also is a very easy to read book. And basically, so how's it been received? By the public?
Very well. I've been really shocked. People, like I said, they love the story. And like I said, it's a real easy read. I didn't make it complicated. When I first started writing it, I did. I started out very complicated. And my husband's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's an easy story. Just keep it simple, and people will love it. And so I started all over and did. I kept it simple.
Yeah.
But so far, everybody that comes forward and talks to me about this, read it, has told me they love it because it is simple. It's easy to read. It doesn't take long. It tells the story, and they like it.
Yep. That's fantastic. And just for everybody who's watching this, I want to tell them that you've also got a website, which is www.alienlegacy1955.com, and it's worth having a look at that website because there's some great pictures on there of the time and your family and the location, and that's fantastic. And you can also see and order the book via the website as well. So anyone who's interested in sort of getting into it in a lot greater detail, then I encourage them to check out the website, which is there for you to have a look at. So the legacy is quite strong from the case.
Yeah.
It's very old now, and it was well before I was born. I was born in 1968, so it happened a long time before I came into the world. So basically, other people may not know about this case. It is actually where the term "little green men" actually was coined from this particular case, and that's such a well-known term around the world. And people have their own, they sort of have their own impression of what little green men mean. But it's directly related to the Kelly story.
Right. And also, I don't know if you know this or not, but Steven Spielberg says E.T. from that too.
Yes, exactly right. E.T., Poltergeist. Hollywood has taken its fair share of inspiration from the Kelly story. So it's a strong legacy, and it lives on strong, and I'm pretty sure it's going to keep on going. In fact,
I told my son that he's going to have to carry it on when I die. I only have one son.
Okay.
So I told him the other day, Scott, carry it on. Scott, keep going.
Keep it, yeah. So yeah. So and there's a festival as well.
Yeah.
Is the festival ongoing, or is it a one-off event?
No. It was in its third year this year. And you want to know what's the fascinating thing about this one?
Yep.
2017, we're having a solar eclipse.
Ah.
Going to be on the exact day of the Kelly incident.
Wow.
It's going to be almost a 3-minute eclipse. People are already booking the hotel rooms around Hopkinsville. Farmers around there are going to rent out their land to campsites. It's already being booked up.
Wow.
We're already terrified. I mean, the festival this year, I heard people actually talking about them being scared that something's going to happen that day because it's the actual anniversary of the Kelly event. And they're thinking that something's going to happen, that aliens are going to come in. And you think about it, it's dark as night in the middle of the day. So people are actually getting pretty terrified already. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. This story, like I said, it's a great story. People love it. But I've been trying to make people realize that, okay, it's the great American horror story. Because you have a family that went through something terrifying that night.
Yeah.
They don't know what it was. Still don't really know what it was to this day, if you want to be honest.
Yeah.
They just know that something was trying to get in their house. They kept it out, but where were they from? You think about it. If something's coming up to your doors and windows, and you didn't know what it was, never seen anything like it before in your life, wouldn't you be like terrified? Heck yeah, I'd go get the shotgun.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. And
that's something that people, it's so funny because people will tell you things and they do not know how they would react if this happened to them.
No.
But a lot of things that really makes me mad about people is, why did they shoot them? I wouldn't have shot them. I'm like, oh, yes, you would have. If they were trying to get in your house and you didn't know what that thing was, tell them you're just going to let it come right on in and sit in your chair or just want to do whatever it wants to. It's great.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the Great American Horror Story because I think that one thing that strikes the nerve of everyone around the world is that very thing of home invasion. Your home is your castle. Your home is your patch of it's your territory. We all understand that you just don't walk into people's houses. It's not the done thing. And little creatures from other worlds, they don't understand that, and apparently it's okay to do that. But I think the thing that sticks in my mind with the case very much so is the scratching and the scurrying on the roof. I can see that so clearly, and the terror that they must have felt would have been absolutely overwhelming. And and your father's the way he lived with that ever since that time.
Right.
He was very scared and he didn't like talking about it.
You were lucky if you got to talk about it. I know right before he died, there were some people from Germany contacting him, wanting him to talk about it, and he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
He said, been quiet all this time, don't want to come back.
Yeah.
So he split it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it.
And his experience is shared by many other people around the world who have had similar experiences to him, where they've encountered the unknown, and the most hurtful thing is the fact that they're not believed, that they're ridiculed, that they're treated as hoaxes, and it really is a byproduct of these phenomenons that people are in this situation and they live with it their entire life. I'm not believed. People don't believe me. I'm an honest, upstanding person. I've had this experience, but it's ridiculed, and it's not supported or believed. And I think it cuts people to the core.
Yes, it does. It hurts. It hurts you deeply.
Yeah.
When your fellow man won't believe anything, and you're laughed at. And that hurt back then. That was 1955. You know, a man with his word. And so, yeah, it hurt my dad deeply that people would not believe him.
Yeah, exactly right. Do you know if the police, did the police actually compile a report at the time, and is that available in the public record?
Yeah, I know they did. Now, I have Project Blue Book. I've actually got a copy of that was sent to me from a guy from UFON.
Yeah.
So I've got the whole file on it, and it's in there, and it was filed away as, what did they say? Basically, what they said in a nice way was that they were uneducated hillbillies.
Yeah.
So they just filed it away.
Yeah.
Case closed. That's it. We're not doing it anymore. Of course, the morning after this happened, and I'm going to put this in my new book, but I had people come forward and tell me that they remember that morning military came in.
Yeah.
And they scoured the area. They had men scouring the ground looking for anything in the stuff. You don't hear about things like that. You don't hear about the military helicopters and stuff that was going over the next 20, 13. You know, people don't talk about that, but it happened. You don't hear about that at the time Fort Campbell up the road, the military base, had some kind of little nuclear thing going on. You don't hear about that.
No.
So, you know, maybe there was a reason we had some little men coming in that night, and God knows why they landed in heaven. There wasn't nothing there for them. They definitely went to the wrong house. You know?
Oh, that's amazing. It absolutely is. Oh, dear. Oh, well, I just wanted to thank you again for your time today, Geraldine, and I know that people here in Australia will certainly have enjoyed, hearing, a family member recount what happened at that time, and we do appreciate your time. So, so I thank you, and we'll have it on VUFOA-TV soon.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Dan, for having me. I really appreciate it. I always say, anytime you get to talk about little things, it's a good time.